Good afternoon, everyone. I'm De Graft, and welcome to Newsround.
Afternoon, Martin here with Newsround coming up.
Hello!
You are watching today's Blue Peter on CBBC and iPlayer.
Welcome to BBC What's New.
I've travelled to the heart of the Amazon rainforest to bring you this special edition of My World.
In the BBC's Creative Diversity Unit, we are really committed to hardwiring diversity and inclusion into every creative decision that we make within the organisation, and also looking at how we make sure that our strategy is also aligned with our workforce strategy so that we are being as inclusive as possible.
I started 50/50 back in 2016. I long felt that the media could be doing much better in fairly representing women. It was like we were stuck in a constant state of trying. We'd accepted the goal, but perhaps we'd also accepted it wasn't possible. And in the summer of that year, I heard a BBC programme with no women contributors. And as I heard it, I resolved to try and do something about it. I wasn't quite sure what, to be honest. Later on that year, I visited Silicon Valley and I was inspired by how companies there were using data to influence behaviour. So on the plane back, I sketched out a system of self-monitoring that wouldn't increase workload. I talked to my team about it. They agreed to try it on our show. It worked. We went from under 40% women to over 50% women. And after that, 50/50 grew. Slowly at first, and then to my amazement, very, very quickly. We've now reached over 600 BBC content teams and over 60 external partners around the world.
What I love about the 50/50 project is that it was started by a handful of journalists who just wanted to make their programme better. Now thousands of content makers across 35 countries and 45 different languages are also using 50/50. And it's not just in the BBC. We have more than 65 other partners using the methodology. Again, not just in the media, but also in the corporate sector, academia, and in marketing.
50/50's very simple, really. We ask content creators to measure all of the contributors in their work that they control. Every person who counts as one. That makes the data collection very simple. That in turn means you can measure your work as you produce it, meaning that you get the data when the work you've done is fresh in your mind, and that gives the data the best chance to influence your thinking and your actions. At the end of each month, teams share their numbers. That means we can highlight success stories and also create a peer group dynamic that can be very effective in motivating teams. One of my goals in starting 50/50 was to make data central to how we take on fair representation. I wanted better information on how we were doing, and I wanted to use data more creatively to help it influence how we worked. So data collection is not the end goal of 50/50. We collect data to affect change, to help us change what we make. And that idea is right at the heart of 50/50.
I hear some of you saying that monitoring is boring and tedious, but it only takes a couple of minutes. And from what I've just said, it's well worth it. And what about our audiences? Well, some recent research done by YouGov of 2,000 BBC online users found that 2/3 of 16 to 24-year-old women enjoyed BBC online content more. Also, 32% of women in the 25 to 34 age bracket consumed more content. So there's a business imperative too. After all, if we're not reflecting half of the world's population, then we're going to be missing out on half our customer base. It's no brainer really to me.
If we don't get it, strike! If we don't get it, strike! If we
Pareil.
Même moi, je suis passée par là. Il y a beaucoup d'albinos, je ne dirais pas qu'ils ne croient.
Everybody has a voice. You can make a difference. And we need everybody to speak out to make a change.
50/50 is designed to offer support and inspiration to content makers who want to ensure that what they make looks like the world around us. It's entirely practical, it's built around people's passion to do this, and it's built around how people already work. It's simple, it's easy to start, it's flexible, and we found it's remarkably effective.
I came to 50/50 from Children's News. I was the output editor for BBC Africa's first ever youth programme, and I've also worked at Newsround. When creating content for a young audience, the potential to impact how they view themselves and the world around them is that much greater. At Africa Kids, we could easily get to 50/50 overall, but we used the simple act of counting and talking about our figures to really consider the quality of gender representation in our show. We realised that we were speaking to many more male public figures than female, and featuring the stories of young girls more than young boys. So we used 50/50 to identify and correct that imbalance so that we could really show our young audience that they can be and do whatever they want. Now, as the internal lead for 50/50, I support all 600 BBC teams taking part to help them improve the diversity of their contributors. When a new team joins, we often hear the same concerns. Aren't most experts male? And we only want to put the right guest on air. Won't this impact that? So we have a phrase that we use a lot at 50/50. The best contributor always gets used. And we've proven that the most well-known and most well-used contributors aren't always the best. Instead, we encourage teams to question whether their guest and story choices really are inclusive, and to look for new voices who we may not have heard from before, but who are just as good, if not better, than the usual suspects. And what teams have been doing is working. March was 50/50 month at the BBC, where everyone is challenged to ensure that at least half of their contributors are women. 1/3 of teams were producing gender balanced content in their first month with the project, but by March this year, 2/3 of teams were featuring 50% women. And of those monitoring for at least 2 years, 76% reached 50/50, showing that the longer a team takes part, the more likely they are to succeed.
The 50/50 project is something that really has been a runaway success for the BBC, and an example of how you can get inclusion right when you, one, make it simple enough to actually implement, and two, you allow people to be able to constantly measure their success rate and their progress, and therefore they want to get better. And that's what we found with 50/50. And so now we are rolling it out for BAME and for disability. We have partnered with the Media Trust on the disability side of things. We have over 30 pilots happening with our radio and TV departments in terms of the new rollout. And in overall, for the gender side of things, I think we're now over 600 teams within the BBC, and then of course all of our global external partners. And I think the area that we'd also like some support on is the work around social economic diversity. We want to be able to do the same with 50/50 for that. And obviously that's a little bit more complicated in terms of the criteria and actually quantifying how you sort of determine whether or not somebody is from a working class background. It's not as straightforward as you would expect. So we are really looking to get that right and do it in a way that seems authentic and true, and in a way that allows us to be able to measure just as we have been with the other underrepresented groups that have been covered by the 50/50 project.
We're now also looking at how 50/50 can evolve. What's the next steps? And we've learned so much when it comes to improving women's representation. So we're trying to translate that now to how we can improve disability and ethnicity representation in our content. We have more than 30 teams at the BBC piloting different models. And once we've worked out exactly what will work, then we're going to offer that out to our partner organisations.
So there are a number of things that we're working on in our department that I'm fortunate enough to be leading. And the first is our River strategy. And this is really for our internal creative teams. And what we're looking at here is the 6 streams of inclusion. Then the other bit of work we're doing is the Belonging Blueprint. And this is really for our supply chain. So we're working with Dr. Stacey Smith from the Inclusion Initiative in America. She's the woman that created the Hollywood Inclusion Rider. And so with that, we're really looking at the culture on sets, the culture the production companies that we engage have on the productions that they make for us. So there's no point setting inclusion riders, which is all about numbers and targets and metrics, which obviously are very, very good, if you haven't done the culture piece. I think my long-term goal and long-term goal of my team is to create a place within the BBC whereby, regardless of your background, regardless of where you currently are, there is a place for you where you can give us your best, and you will be valued and rewarded for that best.
I'd like to think 50/50 has brought a lot to the BBC. It's diversified our work, it's helped us talk about why fair representation improves our work and its popularity, and it's proved that diversity goals can become reality. I'm also very proud that we're now involved in the BBC's work on race and disability too.
We know that we still have work to do to achieve gender balance across all of our content, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
I wonder, is there something we can do similarly within the children's media industry? We would love you to come and join us on our mission of improving underrepresented voices, young and old, so that we reflect the world better.
I'm very happy to be working with the BBC on a children's program.
And this is a Focus on Africa TV desk. This is where all the stories are brought to life. And we have to speak to one of the presenters. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Do the Henry, oh, do the Henry, oh, do the Henry, oh, do the Henry, oh.